when I thought about what courage meant to me, I honestly didn't entirely know what courage meant. Like, I knew what courage meant, but did I really know what courage meant? And I started off doing research, and I looked up a couple quotes, and the first quote was by John F. Kennedy, and he said, "Courage is choosing the harder right over the easier wrong." And then also one by Atticus Finch in The Catcher in the Rye. He says, "Courage is being licked before you've even begun, but choosing to begin anyways." In other words, that's being in over your head before you even start, but starting anyways, another way. That second quote really resonated with me just because so much was expected of us for this project, and I felt like I was in over my head with the stuff that I chose to do. And there came a point where all of us seniors, we were so overwhelmed with everything that we had been asked to do. We honestly thought that our advisors were just going to cancel the whole project in general just because it just was so overwhelming. There was just so much stuff to do. But it also came to a point where now I'm glad that they didn't, because I learned so much about myself and just about people and the way things are done. And I'm just really thankful for that. For my fall experience, I chose to develop the virtue of courage, and I didn't really know what that looked like, and I had a few ideas that people were pitching to me just because I was open to opinion, but I chose to go out and into public places and practice street photography. And photography is something that I love. I love creating new things, and so I started doing research on the way people take pictures of other people just out in the street and stuff like that. And I also wanted to approach people and have a interview with them that went along with the photo that I was taking. And so I would ask them questions just about themselves. It went from questions like, what was the hardest thing that you've ever been through? And that was a hard question to get from a complete stranger. But the times that did happen, it just led to a very fruitful conversation. But the first time I went out, I got really discouraged just because I didn't know how I was going to do this. I found myself walking around with just an expensive camera, not accomplishing anything. I looked like I was doing something, but I really wasn't. And this one day specifically, I decided to go out, and I had one goal, and that was just to approach one guy and talk to him and see what his story was. And I didn't get anywhere this day. I did approach one guy on the light rail on my way home from Denver, and he was homeless or something. He wasn't very well put together, but I started talking to him right away. I knew like he wasn't really like all there in the head, and so the conversation went nowhere. But I was glad that I talked to him just because I accomplished my goal, which was just to approach one guy. And so right away I knew that I didn't really have the courage to do these type of things, but that was almost affirmation and why I was doing this project, because it was something that I needed to develop. And in Joshua 1, it is stated a lot of times to be strong and courageous. And in the dictionary defines courage as the ability to do something that frightens one. And in Joshua, we see courage defined as withstanding a great force of pressure. And like I said earlier, there's just a lot of pressure just to accomplish everything that we needed to accomplish up until this day. Just prep work, getting photos, getting content, getting interviews done, and stuff like that. And it was a tough and vulnerable project, and I definitely knew that I have grown from it. And so I just wanted to share another impactful story with you guys. And I would like to call myself a photographer, and as a photographer, I think about things, and I have pictures in my head about the way things are done. And this particular day, I was out walking around Wash Park, and I was looking for people to talk to and to get content from, and I had this picture in my head of just an older guy just sitting on a bench. To me, it was just very approachable and easy to talk to, and so I just started praying. I was like, God, show me someone to talk to, and show me someone who I should approach. And right away, like, I basically like snap out of it, and like there's this older guy sitting on a bench, and oh yeah, right there. And it was just like, I was like, okay, this is the guy I need to talk to. And because all along I'd been really afraid to approach people still. And so I found myself like walking around this guy, like, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? How am I going to like carry this conversation with him? But I just finally decided to approach him, and this is Bruce. And Bruce was 67 years old, and he had a really cool story. He was born in Iran. Oh, first another funny story real quick. But right before I approached him, I sat down next to him, and I asked him if I could talk to him, and like he has this super thick Iranian accent, and I was just like, when he started talking to me, I was like, oh sweet God, I picked someone who doesn't even speak English, and but no, I figured out that he just had a pretty strong accent, and I figured out that he was from Iran, and he fought in the war in Germany, and he just told me about a couple tough things that he's had go on in his life, and he's settled down here in Denver. He's retired, and I just asked him if he had any life advice for me as a teenager, getting ready to go out and embark on life, basically. And he said a really simple quote, and it was just, if you're too afraid to do anything in life, you're not going to get anywhere. And I took that really to heart just because I was really afraid just to work on everything that I had to work on. I was stressed out. I just felt overwhelmed with everything, and that was just kind of my motivation for what I had to complete. And I was just through encounters like this, I just felt really thankful just for the type of people that God placed in my life, that God orchestrated. I believe that God orchestrated me to meet Bruce just for a Kickstarter to the rest of this project that I'm about to share with you guys. But for my second semester project, I examined what creativity in the church looks like and why it's important, and basically how it can honor God. I would like to call myself a creative person, and I would like to call you guys creative people. And also, I would like to call God creative, and that might seem like an obvious one to you guys, or it might not, but right away when you crack open your Bible, it says, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. And then it said God created mankind in his own image, and basically everything else that we're seeing, God created, you know. But I think that our God is a desire of beautiful things, and I think as artists or as creators, it is our job to present those things to him. And there's just this quote that I wanted to read to you guys, and it's, God created artists as a way to transcend the ugliness and pollution of this world and lift the soul of a man closer to heaven. And I don't think that could be more true. There's something about Christian artwork or anything that you just look at and you can just see it. You can see the heart of the creator behind that sometimes, and it just does something to the human heart that just draws them nearer to God. And my church also, I go to Red Rocks Church, and they do a good job of creating new things, I think, and they value production and creativity highly, I think. And sometimes I've questioned the motives behind that, just because why would someone spend so much money on certain aspects of that? But so that was why I was doing this project. Lately I've been feeling the call on my life just to go into ministry, and that was something that I felt like I really wanted to work out on my heart, just to see why the church does some of the things that it does. But this project was also really important to me just because I saw this huge fishbowl of ideas. Every single day there's new things being put out with just all the technology that we have and everything that is just accessible to us just in seconds. We can just find anything that we want. And so sometimes creativity is getting lost, and sometimes it's also thriving. But I think it's a good and a bad thing that we have this problem or solution. But I just think that there's also a trend of churches that are popping up all over the U.S., and they're embracing basically like a 21st century or 2017 look on creativity or artwork. And when you look back, artwork in the church, what I think about is artwork in the church would be like the Sistine Chapel or the stained glass windows everywhere, those paintings that you see that just tell the stories of the Bible. But right now the church is embracing creativity again, I think, and that doesn't look like, most of the time what I see, that doesn't look like that anymore. It looks like it could go anywhere, just from a preaching style to just loud music. And if you guys go to Red Rocks, you know it's loud music. But and there's other stuff that goes on, and the preacher who wears clothes that you are not used to, and you go to church and you don't. It's not like you remember going to church with when like you went with your grandma when you were younger, you know. But there's something that the church is doing right now, and that is attracting people, and it's stuff like that that attracts the people to the church, and it brings new people in. They make things accessible to people to relate to, and that is kind of where my second semester experience begins. I had the opportunity to shadow one of my good friends, and also Scott Yonkers, his older brother. He is on the creative team at Red Rocks Church as well, and I just wanted to interview him, see what a normal day looks like for him. And during this specific time, Easter was coming up. It was just a few weeks ago, and the church calls Easter the Super Bowl of Christianity sometimes, and I think that I know there's many people who show up on Easter that don't show up regularly for church, and for some unusual reason, they don't show up until that next Easter, the next year. And I think a big goal of the church is to bring those people back just that next week right after Easter. It's just a really big event. I think that when churches want to grow and when churches really want to impact people, because they know that is an issue when people show up and then don't show up till next year sometimes. But I got the chance to help make a small video for the, you can't really see the picture very well, but a small video for the kids ministry for the Easter service. And at this time, a lot of you guys have maybe heard of the Lego movie, but the Lego movie came out, and we also had, what this is here is the Garden of Eden, and this is like the Last Supper. I have closer-up pictures later, but we did that, and so we recorded like the Garden of Eden, and we also paralleled it to the Lego movie and how the story of the gospel can be seen in the Lego movie. And something that MJ shared with me that I thought was really cool. This is the Last Supper, and then there's a little Lego Jesus sitting in the middle. It's kind of goofy. I wish I had the video to show you guys, but I just don't have enough time. But I was like, okay, how can this be important to when you're showing it to an elementary age kid and to try and tell them about Jesus? How do Legos come in, and how do you play that out? And MJ said ministry is done through accessibility, and that, I don't know, that was like my golden nugget for what I was kind of thinking about for what I wanted to do for my project. And we take something like the Lego movie, and then we incorporate something like this and parallel it to the story of creation and the gospel. And then the kids, they see that, and it appeals to them, and they're able to access what is being trying to be communicated. And the same thing can be seen in regular church, in the big church. And it is the job of the minister of whatever church it is to make God accessible through his work, or through the worship leader's work, or through the creator's work. But it's their job to make God accessible to the audience through their work, and it's supposed to point straight to God, and they're supposed to see what their intention was in their process of creating that thing. There's a verse that I think perfectly describes that God ministry is done through accessibility, and it says, "Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us." And there could be different interpretations of that, or people could take that different ways, but we're making a literal sense of what the Bible is telling us and putting it into something like Legos, or just through the message that the minister wants to communicate to the congregation. But I definitely think that through creativity, the heart of God is shown just through a man's work, and I think it is the job of that man to focus solely on just pointing that straight to God, and not gaining any attention for himself if he's trying to communicate something biblical or something just about God. I think it is his job to point that straight to God, but also the person in the audience also needs to be appealing to the person in the audience. There's another quote that I wanted to read that just perfectly describes just how I felt with this whole project and the goals of my project. But this was during a texting conversation with MJ, and I just asked him what it means to him to be a creative person and kind of what his goals are. But he says, "When I was talking about being a creative, we can actually worship God and grow to be more like him. When we create, we are emulating the creatorship of God and how he created us in the world. The more I try to see things in the same way God does, which is valuing other humans far greater than myself, I tend to notice what specifically makes each person who they are. This is why some photographers can take an incredibly deep and intimate close-up photo of a person and truly capture a glimpse of that person's soul despite not really knowing who that person is. Even in nature, I start to perceive the world around me as to what God had originally intended to be for, which is our enjoyment. I can sometimes begin to see things in a new light. God honors persistence, and I've learned a lot about being humble and remaining teachable by anybody. If I begin to develop a prideful spirit, I don't get good results. I just definitely think that was a good way just to walk away from what I was trying to search for in this spring project of just creating in the church, and that definitely is one of my biggest takeaways, is just a simple quote from someone who I look up to. But I think that overall I've definitely grown in so many ways. I wish I could share everything else with you guys, but I've grown in many ways that I would not have imagined. And what I did first semester is I interviewed people, and I definitely grew just from hearing their stories and just hearing just any way that they have experienced something. That definitely shaped my view on how I thought about courage. I learned that trial and error can be a valuable life skill, and I was definitely a pro at the error part. And I definitely I learned a lot about just trial and error and how to create things better. But God orchestrated me to meet people, and those people definitely impacted me in a new way and in a good way. In second semester, I looked at how important creativity is in the church and how to honor God with it. I learned that the goal of a Christian creative is to almost bridge a gap between heaven and earth and communicate exactly what God is trying to communicate to others. There was a quote that I said earlier where one of the goals of a creator or an artist is to transcend the ugliness and the pollution of this world, to lift the soul of a man closer to heaven. And that was just another one of my takeaways. And just now when I think about creating things, that's one of the goals that I want to have, is just lifting other people up, not bringing anyone down. But this project was definitely a trial. It was definitely hard. It was definitely it was, I don't know, it was just an incredible experience. But there was times where I was like, okay, I don't want to do this, but I'm glad that I did it. I'm so glad that I got to experience this, and I'm really thankful for our advisors, Mr. Butler and Mr. Spector, in the way that they pushed us and the way they did, and that they didn't give up on us. And I definitely gained a lot of confidence on what God has for me in the future, and especially going off to college. And I'm just really thankful for that. And over 7 months, I was given the tools that I believe I'll need for those next 4 years in my life. And that emulates exactly what the goal of Front Range Christian is they want to equip us for the future. And I just wanted to end with Front Range's mission verse, and it's, "My purpose is that they may be encouraged in heart and united in love, so that they may have the full riches of complete understanding, in order that they may know the mystery of God, namely in Christ, in whom are hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge." So thank you for giving me your attention, guys, and I'm glad that this many people showed up, and I'm just super thankful for the opportunities that I've been given from Front Range.